everyone, and welcome back to another fun STEAM Kids lesson with the Washington County Public Library. Here we focus on science, technology, engineering, art, and math concepts through fun lessons and crafts. Today we are talking all about the planet we live on, Earth. Earth is such a special place, being that it's the only place we know of so far that can sustain life. So let's celebrate this wonderful planet we live on by looking closely at what it's made of. A very long time ago, 4.6 billion years ago, the Earth was really hot. Like, so hot that much of the Earth was liquid rock and metal. Crazy hot. But over a really long time, billions of years, much of the Earth is cooled, giving it this hard outer crust. However, some parts of the Earth are still super hot, and even some of them are still liquid. Let's dig deep into what's inside our planet. As I mentioned before, the outermost layer of the Earth is the crust. This is where all life on Earth lives. This is also the thinnest layer of the Earth, with it being the thickest where the continents are, where people live, and the thinnest at the bottom of the ocean. The crust can be as thin as 4 miles thick and as deep as 43 miles, especially in places like mountains where we live, where the crust has bunched up together. Even in super deep caves like we have around here, we're only going a little ways into the crust layer. Right below the crust is the largest layer of the Earth, the mantle. This layer is about 1,800 miles deep. That's about as far from Johnson City all the way to Las Vegas, Nevada, all the way across the country. That is super far apart. And much of the mantle is solid rock, but it's super hot. Sometimes it gets so hot that the rock will end up melting into a liquid that we call magma. And the pressure from that super hot magma can cause crazy things to happen up here on top of the crust. Do you know what magma can cause? Volcanoes. Sometimes when there's a weak spot in the crust, magma can create so much pressure that it is forced up through that weak spot in the crust. And when magma comes out of the Earth, we call it lava. Here in the US, there are a few very famous volcanoes, like Mount St. Helens up in Washington State. The most recent eruption of it was in 1980, where the whole top of the mountain blew off. If you want to know more about Mount St. Helens eruption, I encourage you to ask your parents, grandparents, or the adults around you. They might just remember what happened. Let's keep going deeper into what the next layer looks like, which is the outer core. This layer is liquid hot metal, mostly made of iron and nickel, and is about 1,400 miles thick. The swirling forces of the metal in the Earth causes the Earth to turn into something really cool. Can you guess what the Earth is? It's a giant magnet. That's right, just like the ones that we stick to our fridge. One way that we know this is through compasses. And the compass always points. The magnetic field of the Earth causes the needle to move, always having it pointing to the North Magnetic Pole. Now, this is different from Santa's North Pole or the geographic North Pole. So these two poles are actually about 300 miles apart right now, but the magnetic pole can actually move over time due to the shifting metal in the outer core. Now let's take a look at the final layer of the Earth, the inner core. This layer is a solid mass of iron and nickel that's 1,500 miles thick. That is huge. While these metals stay solid, the center of the Earth is as hot as the surface of the sun, being over 10,800 degrees. That is crazy hot. This final layer is so deep that it would take us 12 years, digging day and night at lightning fast speed to ever even get close. But because it's so hot, we wouldn't even make it that far. No one has ever seen what the inner part of the Earth looks like. Scientists have been able to figure this out through experiments and tests. The only part of the inner 3 layers of the Earth, the mantle, the outer core, and the inner core, that we have ever seen has been lava. That is wild to think about. And throughout history, people have thought about what the inside of the Earth must look like. There's a famous kids book called Journey to the Center of the Earth by Jules Verne, where he imagined what it must look like inside of the Earth. And we actually have an audiobook version of it available from the Great Branch if you want to hear about this perilous journey to the center of the Earth. So that is a quick lesson on what's right beneath our feet in the planet that we call home. Earth is such a fascinating place, and there are many different kinds of people that study it to understand it better. Geologists are the scientists that study these layers, but they also study the different types of rocks that exist here on the crust. Looking at rocks and understanding the layers of the Earth helps us better understand the history of the Earth. From looking at rocks around here in East Tennessee, we know that a super long time ago, this area was actually under the ocean. That's why we can find fossils of seashells and fish around here, especially on top of the mountains. I recommend taking some time to look at rocks and try and find fossils if you're ever around hiking in this area. So, now that we've learned about the different layers of the Earth and a little bit about its history, let's create a diagram of the layers of our Earth of our own. This is a fun art project that you can do by yourself, with another sibling or a friend, or with an adult in your life. So here I have pictured a colored in version of the printed out layers of the Earth model that you have. And each one of the layers is labeled, like the brown layer being the crust, the yellow layer being the mantle, the orange being the outer core, and red being the inner core. So included in your baggie that had all of your materials, you have a ton of little cups that have colored rice in them. You also have one cup that includes some glue, and you will have one cotton-tipped applicator to help spread the glue. While you do have creative freedom to make your Earth look however you want with any of the colors, I do have it labeled here with different colors to differentiate the different layers, but as long as you know what the layers are, you can pick whatever color you want. So how to do this, you will take your cotton-tipped applicator and dip it in your little cup of glue and spread it very carefully along one of the layers. I recommend working from one section out. So I first started with my inner core. So I applied the glue onto the inner core, and then I carefully poured out the rice onto that glue, and then I gently tapped it in with my fingers. I let it sit for a few minutes, and then over a paper towel or over a trash can, I dumped it out, and it got rid of all the excess rice that didn't stick. Then repeat this process for each one of the layers, and you end up with a beautiful piece of art. Here is the example that I made myself. This project is super fun and an easy, tactile way to understand the different layers of the Earth, even though we can't see them. Now, you're gonna have a ton of these little containers left over that are empty, and I encourage you to please recycle them or reuse them if you can. Those little cups work great to do finger painting with, or just painting in general, to put paint in to keep it a little bit tidier if you don't have a paint palette. I've also included on the handout some instructions on how you can turn these little tiny cups into really cool sun catchers that you can hang up in your window. You can even color them to look like the layers of the Earth. It is super cool. So I encourage you to check that out and to reduce, reuse, and recycle the plastic that came in this kit. Included in your take-home packet is a informational handout that has a book list in there if you are interested in learning more about the different layers of the Earth, about geology, about space science, or anything like that that we've talked about today. I highly encourage you to check out some of those books if you want to learn more. So many of these are a great resource and where I learned about all of these facts about the Earth. I hope that you all have enjoyed this STEAMkids lesson from the Washington County Public Library. I've had so much fun today with you. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye!